My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 28 years old, and 3 days ago I discovered something that shattered everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. It started with a simple Instagram notification from my cousin Jake, a photo of my downtown condo's living room that I'd never posted myself. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with calls from parents who hadn't spoken to me in 2 years, suddenly acting like loving family desperately needing exactly $39,000, the same amount visible in my investment portfolio screenshot that Jake had somehow accessed and shared in our family group chat. Hey everyone, before we dive into this absolutely wild family drama, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. If this story of family betrayal and unexpected revenge sounds like something that would keep you glued to your screen, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because trust me, you won't believe how this unfolds. The way my own blood relatives tried to manipulate me will leave you questioning everything about family loyalty. Let's jump right into how a single photo destroyed years of lies and revealed the shocking truth about why my parents really cut me off. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant learning early that love came with conditions, and I apparently never met them. My parents, Robert and Linda Mitchell, made it crystal clear from childhood that my older brother Marcus was their golden child, their pride and joy, their investment for the future. Meanwhile, I was the afterthought, the daughter who never quite measured up to their impossible standards. Marcus could do no wrong. When he barely graduated high school with a 2.3 gigapascals, my parents celebrated his creative spirit and artistic temperament. When I graduated as valedictorian with a full scholarship to Northwestern University, they complained about the cost of my graduation dress and asked why I couldn't be more like Marcus, who was finding himself through various failed band attempts and part-time jobs. The favoritism wasn't subtle. Family dinners revolved around Marcus's latest projects, his struggles, his needs. Christmas mornings meant watching him unwrap expensive guitars, recording equipment, and even a used car for his 18th birthday, while I received practical gifts like textbooks and office supplies. Sarah's so responsible, they'd say with dismissive pride, she doesn't need much to be happy. College was my escape, but even my academic achievements couldn't earn their genuine interest. I double majored in finance and computer science, maintained a 3.9 gigapascals, and landed internships at prestigious firms. Their response: "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Marcus is starting a podcast? We're so proud of his entrepreneurial spirit." The final straw came during my senior year when I announced my acceptance into a competitive graduate program for financial technology. My parents' reaction was lukewarm at best, but they lit up when Marcus announced he was moving back home to focus on his music career. They immediately began converting my childhood bedroom into a recording studio for his return. After graduation, I moved to Chicago and threw myself into building my career. I started as a junior analyst at a boutique investment firm, working 70-hour weeks and living in a tiny studio apartment. Every promotion, every achievement, every milestone went unacknowledged by my family. Meanwhile, Marcus continued living rent-free at home, cycling through various creative pursuits funded entirely by our parents. The distance wasn't just geographical. Phone calls became infrequent, then rare, then non-existent. Holidays were optional for me but mandatory for Marcus. Family photos excluded me more often than not. And when I did visit, conversations felt forced and superficial. I was the successful daughter they could brag about to neighbors, but never the one they actually wanted to spend time with. By age 25, I'd stopped trying. The emotional exhaustion of constantly seeking approval from people who seemed incapable of giving it became too much. I focused on my career, built genuine friendships with colleagues and neighbors, and slowly created the family I'd always wanted through chosen relationships rather than blood ones. The irony wasn't lost on me that while they dismissed my practical nature, that same practicality was building me a life they couldn't have imagined. I was making strategic investments, saving aggressively, and building wealth at a pace that surprised even me. But they never asked about my success because they were too busy enabling Marcus's continued failures. My absence from family events became routine. They stopped inviting me to birthday parties, stopped including me in holiday planning, stopped checking in during major life events. It was as if I'd never existed at all, except when they needed someone to present as their successful daughter to impress others. The abandonment hurt less than I expected. After years of fighting for scraps of attention, the silence was almost peaceful. I was building something real, something meaningful, something entirely my own. Little did I know that this independence would soon become the very thing they desperately want to exploit. While my family continued their dysfunctional dance around Marcus's perpetual adolescence, I was quietly building an empire they couldn't have imagined. The investment firm where I'd started as a junior analyst had become my launching pad into the world of financial technology, and my combination of analytical skills and technological innovation was paying off in ways that exceeded my wildest dreams. My breakthrough came when I developed a proprietary algorithm for predicting market trends in emerging tech stocks. The algorithm, which I'd created during late nights and weekends, caught the attention of several major investment firms. Instead of selling it outright, I negotiated a licensing deal that provided both immediate income and ongoing royalties. The initial payment alone was six figures, but the real money came from the monthly licensing fees as more firms adopted my technology. With this windfall, I made my first major real estate investment, a stunning two-bedroom condo in Chicago's River North neighborhood. The building was new construction with floor-to-ceiling windows, a rooftop deck with city views and amenities that felt like a luxury hotel. The condo cost $485,000, and I put down 40% in cash. For the first time in my life, I had a space that was entirely mine, designed exactly how I wanted it. The furnishing process became my creative outlet. I chose a modern minimalist aesthetic with clean lines, neutral colors, and carefully selected statement pieces. A custom Italian leather sectional dominated the living room, paired with a glass coffee table that cost more than my parents spent on furniture in a decade. The kitchen featured top-of-the-line appliances and a marble waterfall island where I hosted dinner parties for my carefully curated circle of friends. My home office was my pride and joy, a dedicated space with triple monitor setups, ergonomic furniture, and built-in shelving displaying my growing collection of financial and technology awards. This room was where I continued developing new algorithms, managing my increasingly complex investment portfolio, and running the consulting business I'd started on the side. The consulting business exploded faster than I'd anticipated. Word spread through professional networks about my unique approach to combining traditional financial analysis with cutting-edge technology. Soon I was working with startups, established corporations, and even government agencies. The income was substantial, but more importantly, I was building a reputation as an innovator in my field. My investment portfolio grew aggressively. I diversified across stocks, bonds, real estate, investment trusts, and cryptocurrency. I also began angel investing in promising startups, several of which provided exceptional returns. By my 27th birthday, my net worth had crossed the seven-figure mark. The shy, overlooked daughter had become a financial powerhouse, but success brought unexpected challenges. The higher my achievements climbed, the more isolated I felt from my family of origin. Not because of shame or embarrassment, but because I'd grown so far beyond their world that we no longer shared common ground. Their concerns about Marcus's latest failed venture or their complaints about household expenses felt trivial compared to my daily decisions involving hundreds of thousands of dollars. I began documenting my journey through carefully curated social media posts, sharing insights about financial independence, investment strategies, and entrepreneurship. My LinkedIn following grew into the tens of thousands, and I started speaking at conferences about women in finance and technology. The recognition was gratifying, but it also highlighted how completely separate my life had become from my family's reality. The few times I did visit home, the disconnect was jarring. They lived in the same cramped house, worried about the same small problems, and continued enabling Marcus's irresponsible behavior. Meanwhile, I was fielding calls from investment banks closing deals worth more than their annual income and building generational wealth, yet they remained completely uninterested in my world, treating my success as if it were an abstract concept rather than tangible reality. This parallel universe couldn't last forever. Eventually, these two worlds would collide in the most unexpected way, triggered by a single photograph that would expose not just my success but the devastating truth about my family's priorities. The foundation I'd built in silence was about to become the center of a storm I never saw coming. Last Monday started like any other. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Jake, my cousin on my mother's side, had tagged me in a photo. We'd maintained a casual relationship over the years. He was one of the few family members who occasionally checked in without wanting something, so seeing his tag wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the photo itself. It was a picture of my living room taken from the perfect angle to showcase my Italian leather sectional, the custom artwork on the walls, and the floor-to-ceiling windows with their spectacular city view. But I'd never posted this photo, and Jake had never visited my condo. The image was clearly taken from inside my home, and I had no memory of anyone taking it. Confused, I called Jake immediately. "Hey, where did you get that photo of my place?" "Oh, that," Jake laughed. "Marcus sent it to me a few weeks ago when he was visiting Chicago. Said he crashed at your place for a night and wanted to show off your fancy setup." "Dude, Sarah, I had no idea you were living like that. The place looks incredible." My blood ran cold. Marcus had never mentioned visiting Chicago. He'd never asked to stay at my place. And he definitely didn't have a key or permission to enter my condo. "Jake, when exactly did Marcus say this was taken?" Like 3 weeks ago. He said he was in town for some music thing and you let him crash there." Why did I mess up by posting it? I hung up and immediately called my building's security. The concierge confirmed what I already suspected. Marcus had somehow gained access to my unit while I was traveling for business in San Francisco. Security footage showed him entering my building with someone who had keycard access, a maintenance worker who'd been immediately terminated when the breach was discovered. But that wasn't the worst part. When I scrolled through Jake's comments, I found something that made my stomach drop. Marcus had apparently been sharing more than just photos. In a comment thread, Jake had posted a screenshot of what appeared to be my investment portfolio summary, showing a current balance of $1.3 million. The screenshot was dated from the same day Marcus had illegally entered my home. The implications hit me like a freight train. Marcus hadn't just violated my privacy by breaking into my condo. He'd accessed my personal computer, photographed my private financial information, and distributed it to family members. The photo Jake posted wasn't casual bragging, it was reconnaissance. Within hours of Jake's post, my phone started ringing. The first call came from my mother, whose voice carried a sweetness I hadn't heard in years. "Sarah, sweetheart, I saw Jake's photo of your beautiful home. We had no idea you were doing so well. We're so proud of you, honey." I was so stunned by the sudden warmth that I almost missed the subtle probing. She asked about my work, my investments, my financial situation with the kind of interest she'd never shown before. When I gave vague answers, she pivoted to family news, chattering about Marcus's latest project with forced enthusiasm. The second call came from my father an hour later. His approach was more direct. "Sarah, your mother and I have been talking. We realize we haven't been the parents we should have been. We want to make things right. Maybe we could visit your place in Chicago, see how you're living." The third call was Marcus himself, and his tone was completely different from our usual awkward exchanges. "Hey sis, man, I'm sorry about not asking before crashing at your place. I was in such a bind and your place was perfect. We should hang out more, maybe I could come visit again soon. Each conversation felt like a chess game where I was several moves behind. They were being strategically nice, asking carefully crafted questions and showing interest in aspects of my life they'd ignored for years. The timing wasn't coincidental, it was calculated. The breakthrough came when my phone rang again that evening. This time it was my mother, but her voice had lost its artificial sweetness. She was crying. "Sarah, I need to tell you something important. Your father, he's in trouble. Real trouble. We haven't wanted to worry you, but we don't know what else to do." Here it comes, I thought. The real reason for all these sudden calls. "Honey, your father made some bad investment decisions. He borrowed money against the house and now we might lose everything. We need $39,000 to save our home. I know it's a lot, but seeing how successful you are, could you possibly help us?" The number hit me like a slap. $39,000 wasn't random. It was precisely the amount shown in my liquid savings account in the screenshot Marcus had taken. They weren't asking for help based on their need. They were demanding a specific amount based on their theft of my private information. This wasn't a family emergency. This was a coordinated manipulation planned and executed with military precision. The forgotten daughter had suddenly become valuable, but only because they'd discovered the exact dollar amount they could extract from her. The betrayal was breathtaking in its scope. They'd violated my home, stolen my private information, and were now attempting emotional manipulation to access my money. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated exactly how much their successful daughter had learned about strategy, leverage, and playing the long game. As I listened to my mother's fabricated sobs, I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about power, control, and the assumption that blood relationships could be weaponized for personal gain. They were about to learn that their quiet, practical daughter had become someone they couldn't manipulate. Someone who understood exactly how to turn their own tactics against them. The war they'd started by invading my privacy was about to become a masterclass in consequences. And I was about to show them what real strategic thinking looked like. Right now, I need to ask you something. Have you ever had family members who suddenly became interested in your success only when they wanted something from you? Drop a comment if you've experienced this kind of manipulation. Because what happens next is going to show you exactly how to handle relatives who think they can exploit your hard work. Don't go anywhere because this story is about to take a turn that will completely flip the power dynamic in my favor. After my mother's tearful phone call about the supposed financial emergency, I knew I needed to verify their claims before making any decisions. My years in financial analysis had taught me that emotional appeals often masked deeper deceptions, and something about their story felt manufactured. I decided to do what I did best: investigate. My first call was to my Uncle Tom, my father's brother who worked in real estate and had always maintained friendly relationships with everyone in the family. If my parents were truly facing foreclosure, Tom would know about it. "Uncle Tom, I heard Dad might be having some financial troubles. Is everything okay?" his pause was telling. "Sarah, wow, I haven't heard from you in forever. Financial troubles. What kind of troubles?" Mom said. "They might lose the house. Something about bad investments and needing to come up with $39,000 immediately." Tom's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Sweetheart, your parents aren't losing anything. Your dad just bought a brand new truck last month, paid cash for it. And your mom's been bragging to everyone about their upcoming cruise to Europe next spring. If they need 39 grand, it's not for the house." The pieces started falling into place, but I needed more information. My next call was to Mrs. Henderson, our elderly neighbor who'd lived next door for 20 years. She'd always been fond of me and had no filter when it came to neighborhood gossip. "Mrs. Henderson, it's Sarah Mitchell. I heard there might be some financial issues at my parents' house. I'm worried about them." "Oh honey, financial issues. Your parents are doing just fine. Matter of fact, your father was just bragging about some big investment opportunity. Said he needed to come up with some money quickly to get in on something that would make him rich. And your brother's been driving around in a fancy new car. Looks expensive to me. My stomach dropped. The financial emergency wasn't an emergency at all. It was an investment opportunity they wanted to fund with my money. The elaborate story about losing the house was a complete fabrication. But I needed proof, not just neighborhood gossip. That evening, I called my cousin Jake back, this time with a different agenda. Jake, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. What exactly did Marcus tell you about visiting my place? Jake's voice grew uncomfortable. Look, Sarah, I probably shouldn't have posted that photo. Marcus made me promise not to tell anyone how he really got into your place. How he really got into my place. Jake, what aren't you telling me? After a long pause, Jake continued. Marcus said he didn't actually visit you. He said he borrowed your key somehow, and that he needed to check something at your place for your parents. He made it sound like you knew about it, but the way he said it seemed weird. That's why I deleted most of the photos he sent me. Most of the photos, Jake? What other photos did he send you? Pictures of your computer screen, your mail, stuff like that? Sarah, I think Marcus was snooping through your personal things. I felt gross about it, which is why I only posted the living room shot. I thought maybe it was okay since it was just furniture. The violation was even worse than I'd suspected. Marcus hadn't just broken into my home, he'd systematically documented my private information, including financial statements, personal correspondence, and anything else he could find. This wasn't opportunistic snooping. This was premeditated industrial espionage. My next step was calling my building management to get the complete security footage. As a tenant and victim of the break-in, I had the right to see all recorded evidence. What I discovered was chilling. Marcus hadn't been alone. The security footage showed him entering my building with 2 other people, the maintenance worker who'd been fired, and a woman I didn't recognize. They'd spent over 4 hours in my unit, systematically going through every room, every drawer, every file cabinet. They'd even opened my safe, which contained important documents and backup drives with financial records. The maintenance worker had provided access in exchange for $500 cash. The woman, according to building security, had posed as Marcus's girlfriend, but was clearly there for a specific purpose. She'd focused entirely on my home office, photographing documents and accessing my computers, while Marcus created a general inventory of my belongings. But the most damaging discovery came when I checked my email and financial accounts for unauthorized access. Marcus had somehow obtained my passwords, possibly through keylogging software or by photographing password lists, and had accessed my accounts multiple times over the past 3 weeks. He downloaded bank statements, investment summaries, and even my tax returns. The scope of the privacy violation was staggering, but it also revealed the true motivation behind my family's sudden interest. They hadn't just discovered I was successful. They'd conducted a complete financial audit of my life, without my knowledge or consent. They knew exactly how much I earned, how much I saved, what I invested, and where every dollar was allocated. The $39,000 request wasn't arbitrary. It was the precise amount in my liquid savings that they knew I could access immediately without selling investments or liquidating assets. They'd calculated the maximum they could extract without forcing me to make significant financial changes. But their research had revealed something else. The full extent of my wealth was far beyond what they'd imagined. My investment portfolio alone was worth over $1 million. And my business assets pushed my net worth well into 8 figures. The daughter they'd dismissed as merely practical had become wealthier than their wildest dreams. Armed with this information, I realized they weren't planning a one-time request. They were establishing a baseline for ongoing financial exploitation. The $39,000 was a test to see how easily I could be manipulated. If I complied, larger requests would follow, until they'd systematically drained whatever they could access. The betrayal was complete, but it had also given me something unexpected: total clarity about who my family really was and what they actually valued. They weren't capable of loving me for who I was, but they were absolutely willing to violate every boundary to access what I'd built. Now I had to decide how to respond. I could simply refuse their request and cut contact permanently. Or I could use their own tactics against them in a way that would ensure they never attempted this kind of manipulation again. The strategic part of my mind, the part that had built my success, was already formulating a plan that would give them exactly what they deserved. After discovering the full extent of my family's betrayal, I spent 3 days crafting the perfect response. My years in financial strategy had taught me that the most effective retribution wasn't immediate retaliation, but rather allowing your opponents to defeat themselves through their own greed and desperation. I was about to orchestrate a masterclass in consequences. My plan began with a phone call to my mother, delivered with just the right mixture of concern and willingness to help. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you told me about Dad's situation. I want to help, but I need to understand exactly what happened before I can figure out the best way to assist." Her relief was palpable. "Oh, Sarah, thank you for considering this. Your father made some poor choices with a business partner. He invested our savings in what he thought was a sure thing, but it turned out to be a scam. Now we owe money we don't have." I let her spin her elaborate fiction while I took notes. The story had evolved since our first conversation, gaining new details and emotional embellishments. She painted a picture of innocent victims, caught in circumstances beyond their control, completely unaware that I knew they'd stolen my private information to craft their sob story. "Mom, $39,000 is a significant amount. I want to help, but I'd need to see documentation of the debt and understand the timeline. Can you send me the paperwork?" The request for documentation sent her into a mild panic. "Well, sweetie, your father handles all the financial details. Maybe you could speak with him directly. He's been so stressed about this whole situation." When my father called an hour later, his story was notably different from my mother's version. According to him, the money wasn't for debt at all, but for a time-sensitive investment opportunity that could set the whole family up for life. He needed the $39,000 as a down payment on a business venture that would triple our investment within 6 months. The contradictory stories confirmed what I already knew. They were making everything up as they went along, assuming I'd be too emotional or trusting to question their narrative. They'd seriously underestimated their practical daughter's ability to analyze inconsistencies. "Dad, this sounds incredible. Tell me more about this investment opportunity." He launched into an elaborate explanation about a friend's construction company that had secured contracts for luxury condos, but needed immediate capital to purchase materials. The returns would be guaranteed, the timeline was perfect, and the only catch was that they needed to act immediately. "That sounds amazing, Dad. You know what, I want in on this myself. Can I invest more than just the $39,000 I'd like to put in? Maybe $200,000, if this opportunity is as good as you say." His excitement was immediate and telling. "Really, Sarah, that would be incredible. Let me talk to my partner and see how much additional investment he can handle. This could change everything for our family." The hook was set. I told him I'd need to meet with his business partner to discuss the investment details, see the contracts, and understand the legal structure before committing such a substantial amount. We arranged a meeting for the following Saturday at a restaurant downtown. Meanwhile, I contacted a private investigator I'd worked with on due diligence projects. Within 24 hours, he'd confirmed that my father had no business partner, no construction contracts, and no legitimate investment opportunity. The entire story was fabricated. But the investigation revealed something else interesting. My parents had been bragging to neighbors and extended family about their successful daughter who was about to solve all their financial problems. They'd already spent money they didn't have, making purchases and commitments based on their assumption that I'd provide the requested funds. Marcus had been even more reckless. Using information he'd stolen from my home, he'd applied for credit cards and loans, claiming to have family wealth as collateral. He'd purchased expensive recording equipment, a new car, and had even put a deposit on an apartment in Nashville, planning to fund his music career with money he expected to extract from me. Their premature celebration was about to become their downfall. Saturday arrived and I met my parents at the restaurant as planned. They'd dressed up for the occasion and brought a folder of what appeared to be official documents. My father introduced me to his business partner, a nervous man who was clearly a family friend, recruited to play a role he didn't understand. I listened patiently as they presented their fictional investment opportunity, complete with forged contracts and manufactured timelines. When they finished their presentation, I smiled warmly and pulled out my own folder. "This sounds wonderful, Dad. I'm definitely interested. But before we proceed, I need to discuss something important with all of you." I placed a photo on the table, a still image from my building's security camera showing Marcus entering my condo with his accomplices. Their faces went pale. "I know about the break-in. I know about the stolen financial information. I know about the forged investment documents. And I know that everything you've told me today is a complete lie." The silence was deafening. My father's business partner looked confused and alarmed. My mother started crying, but this time her tears were genuine panic rather than manipulative theater. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued calmly. "You're going to return every item Marcus stole from my home. You're going to provide me with a written confession of your illegal activities. And you're going to explain to everyone you've told about this fictional emergency that it was all a lie." My father tried to bluster through a denial, but I pulled out printouts of Marcus's credit applications, my parents' recent purchases, and documented evidence of their deception. The weight of proof was overwhelming. "The alternative," I said quietly, "is that I file criminal charges for breaking and entering, theft, identity fraud, and attempted extortion. The evidence is comprehensive, and the penalties would likely include jail time." Their choice was clear: voluntary public humiliation or involuntary criminal prosecution. As they sat in stunned silence, contemplating the destruction of their own making, I realized that justice wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring that actions had appropriate consequences. They'd gambled everything on their ability to manipulate me, and now they were about to lose far more than they'd ever attempted to steal. The aftermath of my family's exposure was swift and devastating, but not in the way they'd anticipated. Within 24 hours of our restaurant confrontation, I received a signed confession from Marcus admitting to the break-in and theft of my private information. My parents provided a written apology acknowledging their deceptive behavior and attempted manipulation. But compliance with my demands was only the beginning of their consequences. The ripple effects began immediately. Mrs. Henderson, our neighborhood gossip, had apparently witnessed the fancy new purchases my parents had made in anticipation of my supposed financial contribution. When word spread that the entire emergency was fabricated, my parents became the subject of neighborhood scandal. Their credibility in the community evaporated overnight. Marcus faced even more serious consequences. The credit cards and loans he'd obtained using false information about family assets triggered fraud investigations when the financial institutions discovered his deception. His new car was repossessed, his recording equipment seized, and his Nashville apartment deposit forfeited. The music career he'd planned to fund with my money collapsed before it began. But perhaps the most satisfying consequence was completely unexpected. Jake, feeling guilty about his role in exposing my financial information, reached out to apologize and shared something that changed everything. He'd been in contact with other cousins and family friends, and my parents' behavior had sparked a broader conversation about their treatment of me over the years. Extended family members who'd witnessed my academic achievements, career success, and personal growth began questioning why my parents had never shown pride in their accomplished daughter. Aunts and uncles who'd watched me graduate with honors, build a successful career, and create a meaningful life started asking pointed questions about the family dynamics they'd previously ignored. The contrast became impossible to deny. While I'd quietly built wealth and success through hard work and intelligence, Marcus had remained dependent on parental support well into his late 20s. While I'd created genuine achievements worth celebrating, my parents had consistently minimized my accomplishments in favor of enabling their son's irresponsible behavior. Family gatherings became uncomfortable for my parents as relatives openly questioned their priorities. Uncle Tom, the real estate agent, was particularly vocal about their hypocrisy. "You raised an incredibly successful daughter," he told them at a family barbecue. "Sarah's achieved more by 28 than most people do in a lifetime. How did you not see that?" The financial consequences extended beyond Marcus's failed schemes. My parents had made commitments based on their assumption that I'd provide funds, including deposits on their European cruise and a new roof for their house. When I refused to bail them out, they faced real financial strain for the first time. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that their actual money problems resulted directly from their attempt to steal money they didn't need. Meanwhile, my own life flourished in ways I hadn't expected. The clarity of cutting toxic family relationships allowed me to invest more energy in meaningful connections. My chosen family of friends and mentors provided the support and celebration that my biological family had never offered. Professional relationships deepened, as I channeled the energy I'd previously wasted on family drama into building my business and pursuing new opportunities. The story of my family's betrayal became a cautionary tale in my professional network about the importance of boundaries and the dangers of mixing family with finances. Several colleagues shared similar experiences of family members attempting to exploit their success, and we formed informal support networks for handling these challenging dynamics. 6 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected call from my mother. Her tone was different, subdued, genuinely remorseful, without the manipulative sweetness of her earlier attempts. "Sarah, I know we don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that we've realized how badly we failed you. Not just with this recent situation, but for your entire life. We were wrong about everything." The conversation was awkward and painful, but it contained something I'd never heard before: genuine acknowledgement of their mistakes. She admitted that they'd taken my success for granted, assumed my independence meant I didn't need family support, and had been so focused on Marcus's problems that they'd ignored my achievements. "We're in family therapy now," she continued. "The therapist helped us understand how our favoritism damaged both you and Marcus. We enabled him instead of helping him grow, and we neglected you instead of celebrating your strengths." I listened without interrupting, processing decades of pain and resentment. The apology was meaningful, but it couldn't undo years of emotional neglect or excuse their recent criminal behavior. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about absolving them, it was about freeing myself from the burden of their poor choices. "Mom, I appreciate you acknowledging what happened. But rebuilding trust takes time and consistent action, not just words. If you're serious about change, you'll respect my boundaries and understand that relationships have to be earned." The call ended without resolution, but with something more important: closure. I'd spent years trying to prove my worth to people incapable of recognizing it. Their attempt to exploit my success had inadvertently freed me from that impossible pursuit. Today, my condo remains my sanctuary, more secure and private than ever. The investment portfolio they tried to steal continues growing, funding not just my own security, but also scholarships for young women in finance and technology. The business they attempted to exploit has expanded internationally, creating opportunities for others who understand the value of hard work and integrity. Sometimes the greatest gift toxic family members can give you is showing their true nature so clearly that you finally stop trying to change them. My parents forgot I existed until they needed my money, but their betrayal reminded me that I'd built something far more valuable than wealth. I'd built a life of integrity, purpose, and genuine relationships. The lesson isn't about family loyalty or forgiveness, it's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to let others diminish it. When people show you who they really are, believe them. And when you've built something meaningful, protect it from those who would exploit it without appreciation. Looking back, I'm grateful for that Instagram photo. It exposed a truth I needed to see and forced a confrontation I'd been avoiding. My parents may have forgotten I existed, but in trying to steal from me, they reminded me of exactly who I am, someone who can't be manipulated, won't be exploited, and refuses to accept love that comes with a price tag. Have you ever experienced family members who suddenly showed interest in your life only when they discovered you had something they wanted? How do you handle relatives who treat relationships like transactions? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes sharing these experiences helps us all process the complicated dynamics of family loyalty versus personal boundaries. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama about standing up for yourself when family betrays your trust. Share this with anyone who's ever felt invisible in their own family until success made them suddenly valuable. And remember, the family you choose can be more loyal than the family you're born into. Thank you for listening to my story of family betrayal and ultimate justice. I hope it reminds you that your worth isn't determined by others' recognition, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is protect yourself from people who can't appreciate what you've built. May you always know your value regardless of who's watching.